You know what's absolutely wild? There are cities in America where being middle class is basically illegal now. Not technically, but practically. We're making $70,000 or $80,000 a year, which used to mean you were doing fine. Now means you're one rent increase away from living with roommates at age 40. I'm talking about cities that have become so expensive that there's basically no middle anymore. You're either rich enough to afford it or you're struggling. Software engineer making to 100 grand. You're fine. Teacher making 60, get out. Nurse making 70? Hope you like our long commutes from cheaper cities. And the crazy part is city officials will stand up and talk about preserving diverse communities while actively implementing policies that make it impossible for middle-income people to exist there. It's like watching someone set a house on fire while giving a speech about the importance of shelter. So today we're going through 16 cities where the middle class has basically vanished, where the income distribution looks less like a bell curve and more like a barbell. Rich people, poor people, and a rapidly shrinking number of people in between who are probably planning their escape. Let's get into it. Here's what's happening and why it's not just about expensive cities being expensive. The middle class isn't just finding these cities expensive. They're being systematically pushed out by economic forces that make it mathematically impossible for them to stay. And the data shows it clearly. These cities are seeing their middle-income households decline while both high-income and low-income households increase. Think about what that means. The middle is literally disappearing. The people who used to be teachers, nurses, firefighters, middle managers, small business owners, the backbone of functional cities, they're leaving. And they're being replaced by either very wealthy people or service workers who can barely afford to be there. This creates a bizarre two-tier system. Luxury condos and subsidized housing, Michelin star restaurants and dollar stores, high-end boutiques and check-cashing places. Nothing for the people in the middle. Why is this happening? A few reasons. First, housing costs have completely detached from local wages. When a median home costs 10 or 12 times the median income, middle-class homeownership is impossible. Second, the jobs that remain are increasingly polarized. Tech jobs paying massive salaries, service jobs paying minimum wage. The middle-income jobs moved to cheaper cities or got automated. Third, and this is important, these cities often have the political will to help the poor, but not the middle class. There are affordable housing programs for low-income residents. There are tax breaks for wealthy developers. But if you make 60 or 70,000, you're on your own. To rich for assistance, to poor for the city. And fourth, the people leaving can't vote anymore. Once you're priced out and move to a cheaper city, you lose your voice in the place that pushed you out. So the policies that caused the problem face no political consequences from the people most harmed. Number 16. Boston, Massachusetts. Starting with the city where revolutionary spirit died and got replaced by med students and finance brothers. Boston's middle-income households have declined about 15 to 20% over the last 2 decades. Median home prices are around $700,000 to over $1 million depending on neighborhood. If you're making Boston's median household income of around $85,000, you're getting priced out. Boston has incredible history, universities, and healthcare. It also has a housing market where the middle class can't compete with people whose parents are buying them condos or tech workers with stock options. If you're a teacher or social worker, you're commuting from Worcester or beyond. The city's solution has been to build some affordable housing units, which helps people at 60% of area median income. But if you make 80 or 90,000, too much for affordable housing, not enough to buy market rate, you're stuck. Boston is where the Tea Party fought taxation without representation. And now the middle class experiences pricing without accommodation. Number 15. Washington, D.C. is the city where government workers can't afford to live near their government jobs. D.C.'s middle-income population has dropped significantly. Median home prices in desirable areas are $700,000 plus. Federal workers making GS-12 or GS-13 salaries, which are decent, find themselves priced into far suburbs or less desirable neighborhoods. D.C. has monuments, museums, and political power, It also has gentrification that's pushed out middle-class black residents who lived there for generations. The people running the government increasingly don't live in the city the government runs. The irony is D.C. has massive income inequality while being full of people who write policy papers about income inequality. They just don't connect the dots between their housing policies and their policy positions. D.C. is where the people making laws about affordability can't afford the city they work in. Number 14. Denver, Colorado. Denver went from affordable western city to an affordable tech hub in about 15 years. Middle-income households in Denver have declined as the city's become a destination for remote workers and tech companies. Median home prices are around $550,000 to $650,000. Colorado natives making median income are being priced out by transplants making coastal salaries. Denver has mountains, sunshine, and breweries. It also has natives who are bitter about Californians moving in and driving up prices. The middle class that made Denver culturally interesting is leaving for Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, or other states. The city's response has been mixed. Some affordable housing initiatives. Lots of luxury development. The middle-income people just kind of get forgotten in between. Denver is where everyone moved for affordable mountain living and made it unaffordable. Number 13. Portland, Oregon. Portland is the city where Weird died because Weird couldn't afford the rent. Portland's middle class has been declining as the city gentrified rapidly. Home prices are around $500,000 to $650,000. The artists and creatives who made Portland can't afford Portland anymore. Portland has food culture, nature access, and political activism. It also has homelessness, housing costs, and a middle-class exodus. The people who work normal jobs are either commuting from suburbs or leaving Oregon entirely. The city's famous weirdness was built by middle-class creatives who had time to be weird. Because they could afford life. When that's gone, Portland becomes just another expensive city with good coffee. Portland is where keep Portland. Weird died of gentrification. Number 12. Austin, Texas. Austin marketed itself as affordable alternative and then became exactly what people were. Fleeing. Austin's middle class has been systematically priced out. Home prices went from $250,000 a decade ago to $600,000 plus now. Local musicians, artists, teachers can't afford the city that celebrated them. Austin has no state income tax and good weather. It also has property taxes that eat the income tax savings and a housing market that's inaccessible to the middle class. The creatives who made Austin cool are leaving for San Antonio or other states. The city's solution has been to allow luxury development under the assumption that supply will help. It hasn't helped the middle class. They're still leaving. Austin is where keep Austin weird became keep Austin expensive. Number 11. Miami, Florida. Miami is where the middle class got squeezed between international wealth and service workers. Miami's middle-income population has declined sharply. Median home prices in desirable areas are $500,000 to $700,000 plus. The middle class that used to exist has largely left for Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, or cheaper Florida cities. Miami has beaches, culture, and international appeal. It also has massive income inequality and a housing market driven by foreign buyers and wealthy transplants. The city is becoming a playground for the global rich and a workplace for people serving the global rich. The middle has nowhere to fit. Miami is where the American dream got bought by offshore money. Number 10. Seattle, Washington. Seattle is where tech money turned a livable city into an expensive dystopia. Seattle's middle class has been decimated by tech boom housing costs. Median home prices are around $750,000 to over $1 million. Amazon and Microsoft salaries have priced out everyone else. Teachers and nurses live in Tacoma or further and commute. The city has tried taxation and affordable housing mandates. But when you're competing with tech workers who get $500,000 in stock options, middle-income people just lose. Seattle is where Bezos won and the middle class lost. Number 9. San Diego, California. San Diego is the Sunshine Tax manifest as an affordability. San Diego's middle class has shrunk significantly. Median home prices are $700,000 to over $1 million. Military families, who you'd think would be stable, struggle to afford housing. Teachers commute from Riverside County. The middle class that could enjoy the climate increasingly can't afford to live in it. The city's military presence provides some stability, but even military families with BAH struggle. Civilians making median income have largely given up. San Diego is where perfect weather costs your financial future. Number 8. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago is interesting because it's expensive, but also losing middle class for different reasons. Chicago's middle-income households have declined as people leave for lower-tax states or safer neighborhoods. Property taxes in Chicago can be brutal. Services are declining. The middle class is leaving for suburbs or other states entirely. Chicago has culture, architecture, and food. It also has fiscal problems, high taxes, and violence in some areas that's pushed middle-class families out. The city's tax base contracts as the middle class leaves, forcing higher taxes on those who remain, causing more to leave. Death spiral economics. Chicago is where the middle class left and took the tax base with them. Number 7. Washington State suburban cities. Cities like Bellevue and other Seattle suburbs are becoming unaffordable. The middle class is being pushed out of these previously affordable suburbs. Home prices have exploded to $600,000 to over $1 million. Tech money spread from Seattle to the entire metro area. These cities used to be where middle-class Seattle workers moved for affordability. Now they're just expensive extensions of Seattle. The middle class got pushed further out to Tacoma, Olympia, or other counties. The entire Puget Sound region has become expensive enough that middle-income earners are considering leaving Washington State entirely. Washington suburbs are where the middle class went to escape Seattle and got caught anyway. Number 6. Silicon Valley cities. San Jose, Palo Alto, Mountain View, the whole region is middle-class free. These cities have essentially no middle class anymore. Median home prices are $1 million plus. Many are over $2 million. If you're not in tech making to $100,000 plus, you don't exist there. Silicon Valley has innovation and wealth. It has no teachers who can afford to live there. No firefighters. No nurses. They all commute from Stockton, Tracy, or further. Some live in RVs. The wealth concentration is so extreme that these cities are functionally gated communities. For the tech elite, everyone else is imported daily to serve them. Silicon Valley is where innovation killed affordability. Number 5. Los Angeles, California, LA, is where the entertainment industry and tech money destroyed the middle class, LA. As middle-income population has declined significantly. Median home prices vary wildly, but in desirable areas are $700,000 to over $1 million. Middle-class people are pushed to the Inland Empire or leaving California. L. is entertainment, weather, and culture. It also has traffic, high costs, and a bifurcated economy. You're either successful in entertainment or tech or you're struggling. The people who serve the wealthy commute hours from cheaper areas. The city's middle has been hollowed out. L.A. is where the middle class got written out of the script. Number 4. New York City, New York. New York is the OG middle class disappearing act. New York's middle class has been declining for decades. Manhattan is for the wealthy and rent-controlled elderly. Brooklyn gentrified completely. Queens is gentrifying. The Bronx is next. Middle-class people have left for New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, or entirely different states. New York has everything: culture, jobs, food, entertainment. It also costs so much that middle-income earners can't participate. Teachers, cops, firefighters live in the suburbs and commute. Or they leave entirely. The city that was built by the middle class now has no room for them. Rent control helps some people. Subsidized housing helps the poor. But if you make $70,000, too much for help. Not enough to afford New York. New York is where the American dream got too expensive to dream. Number 3. Oakland, California. Oakland is the tragic story of gentrification destroying the middle class. Oakland's middle class, particularly the black middle class, has been systematically displaced. Home prices went from affordable to $500,000 to $800,000 plus. The community that built Oakland culturally can't afford Oakland anymore. Oakland was supposed to be the affordable Bay Area. Then San Francisco tech money discovered it. Now it's expensive and the people who made it culturally significant are gone. The city has tried to implement protections. Too little too late. The middle class already left for Sacramento, Stockton, or out of state. Oakland is where proximity to wealth killed the community. Number 2. San Francisco, California. San Francisco might be the single worst city in America for middle-class existence. San Francisco's middle class is almost entirely gone. Median home prices are over $1 million. Many are $1.5 million plus. Middle-income people don't exist in the city proper. They can't. San Francisco has tech wealth and progressive politics. It has no teachers living in the city they teach in. No nurses. No firefighters. They all live in East Bay, South Bay, or further. The city's response has been affordable housing lotteries and rent control. Helps some people. Doesn't help the middle class. They just leave. San Francisco is where being middle class became impossible. Number 1. Manhattan, New York. At number 1, the place where the middle class most completely vanished, we have Manhattan. Manhattan is for millionaires and people in rent-controlled apartments from 1970. That's it. Middle-class people don't live in Manhattan. They can't. Median home prices are well over $1 million. Rent for one bedroom is $4,000 plus. Manhattan has everything money can buy. It has no middle class. The teachers work there, but live in Queens or New Jersey. The nurses commute from Connecticut. The firefighters live in Long Island. The borough that used to be economically diverse is now just rich people and service workers. The middle vanished completely. Manhattan is where the middle class became a historical artifact. So what does all this mean? First, these cities are becoming economically unsustainable. You can't run a city when teachers, nurses, cops, and firefighters can't afford to live there. At some point, the system breaks. Second, the political response has been inadequate because the people being priced out lose their political voice. Once you leave, you can't vote for better policies. The people who remain either benefit from high prices homeowners or are stuck rent-controlled or subsidized. Third, this is creating a weird American geography where the most economically dynamic cities are becoming inaccessible to normal people. The cities with the best jobs, culture, and opportunities are the ones the middle class can't afford. Fourth, the solution of just moving to cheaper cities doesn't work long-term. Because as middle-class people flood into those cheaper cities, they bring their buying power and price those places out too. See, Austin, Denver, Nashville. And fifth, this has implications for economic mobility and the American dream. If the best cities are only for the rich, and the middle class is stuck in cheaper, lower opportunity areas, social mobility breaks down. So there you have it. 16 cities where the middle class has basically vanished. This isn't inevitable. This is policy failure. These cities chose to zone for luxury housing. They chose to allow unlimited tech growth without building infrastructure. They chose to help the poor and coddle the rich while ignoring the middle. And now they're reaping what they sowed. Homelessness because service workers can't afford rent. Teacher shortages because teachers can't afford to live there. Infrastructure problems because the tax base is unstable. The middle class isn't leaving because they're lazy or because they hate cities. They're leaving because the math doesn't work. When rent takes 60% of your income, you leave. When you can't save money, you leave. When your kids can't afford to live near you as adults, you leave. These cities are conducting an experiment in whether you can have functional cities without a middle class. And the answer appears to be no. But they're going to learn that the hard way. So here's my question for you. If you live in one of these cities and you're middle class or trying to be, at what point do you leave? What's your breaking point? Or are you going to stay and fight for a city that's pricing you out? Let me know in the comments. Because this is probably the most important economic shift happening in American cities right now. And if you found this depressing but informative, maybe subscribe. We cover housing markets, economic dysfunction, and the slow death of the American middle class. Someone has to document the vanishing. Might as well be me.